Hey everybody, it's Defense Mech, back with another LSDj tutorial. This one's maybe been a long time coming. I've gotten a lot of questions about the noise channel because it works pretty differently in the latest stable version of LSDj 9.2.L. But I felt it was worth talking about because there's a tutorial by Boy Meets Robot about the noise channel for version 4, and it's really good. He spends maybe 25 minutes kind of talking about the different sound design for all of the noise instruments he uses, but it doesn't really apply to the new noise channel because it's been just totally revamped. So for anybody who's kind of getting into LSDj version 9, I hope this will be kind of a helpful introduction to the noise channel. And maybe if you already know some of the new noise channel, maybe there will be some new tricks in here, or maybe not. Either way, hopefully this will be helpful. So let's get right into it. First things first, I think we have to talk about the notes. So, actually, first off, the default note for the noise channel is actually something that's kind of usable. Granted, you know, the decay on this is maybe a little much, so not gonna spend a lot of time yet on these instrument parameters, but I am just gonna kind of adjust this so that we can hear. Okay, just a little bit shorter note. So the first mode of the noise channel is this long loop mode, or the sort of noisy mode, where it sounds more or less like white noise, and these are represented by these numbers of the noise shape. So the default is 30, and we can go basically from 0 to about 37 or 38. Yeah, 30, no, up a little higher. Okay, 3B, so that's what we've got here. So, and yeah, it goes all the way down to 0. So we've got that many noise shapes, and you can keep going. If you go up and down, it will kind of shift you by octaves. And if you continue past these numbers in either direction, you'll start getting into the pitched noise, or the short loop mode. So you've got C -4, and you can go through, and these actually will display the note name. It's not exact pitch, it just is the closest note in pitch to what the noise sound is. So these are the pitches that we have, and like I said, going up and down will take you by octave. So you don't have to use the S command anymore, even though I'm sort of getting ahead of myself, to change the shape. You've got a lot of perfectly good options, and you might also notice. Okay, so some of these lower noises don't really give a whole lot of real character, right? They're just kind of, literally noisy, almost like static or something like that. And then you kind of get into a little crunchier territory once you start, getting up into these about 20. So another thing you'll notice is the pitches are arranged in order of lowest to highest. Didn't used to be the case, but now it is. So that's very nice. Makes, choosing descending, progression a lot easier to create. The next thing, and this might warrant a little bit longer envelope, so let me just extend this a little bit, is to talk about some of the commands. So, you've got your noise table. We'll kind of come to that here. You've got your maybe. This is pretty standard across all channels. It's just the probability of whether this note will play or not. We've got some chords. Now, one of the interesting things is that this actually works in the noise channel now. So, if I want to make an arpeggio that goes up, can actually do this by going up to 1 and then 2. So it will play F, and then it will play, yeah. So you can actually get arpeggios in the noise channel. You could try, you know, it's kind of like an open fifth. So pretty cool. That's the chord command. D, delay note, that's pretty standard. Volume envelope, pretty much the same. G, set groove. H is hop. K is kill note. M is master volume, etc. These are pretty standard, but the pitch bend command now can also be used in the noise channel. This has been the case for a while, but I'm sort of speaking for people who, you know, may not have checked out any of the new versions for years and are looking into this for the first time. So you can actually do smooth pitch sweeps in the noise channel. And likewise, you can go downward. And higher or lower values will kind of cause even crazier sounds. So that's pretty cool. Likewise, the C command can actually kind of do some crazy stuff in this realm too. So you can do like some quick kind of shape toggling without even using a table. And you can even sort of combine these. So let's skip to the V command. So you can actually do vibrato. You've got your speed and depth like usual. And then you can combine these. So if you want to do this kind of with a vibrato but sliding downwards, could probably go more dramatically. So yeah, these are just some of the craziest things you can do. You've also got your S command. Now, of course, you know, you can see the shape that's playing over here on the right. Right, so you can do this. I don't necessarily find a ton of use for the S command anymore, but it is kind of cool to chain it to the Z command. So you can do something like this to get a bunch of different random shapes. Or go even crazier. So that can be kind of nifty. Let's move on to talk a little bit about the instrument parameters. Okay, so you've got your name, not a big deal. The envelope. The envelope is great because it allows you to get really, really quick transients. And I find that transients are really great for shaping noise instruments. So if you just want like a little click or pop, you can get that with this. And then you can go really quickly down to, you know, a lower volume. So, and even though it might not sound like much, and you can certainly bump this up, it just kind of helps it stick out. And so I like to do this. I like to kind of start it up maybe around 6 or 7 and then kind of get down to like 5 or 4, something like that, or 8. And you can kind of really hear it here, right? So if we just kind of, now compare that to if I just had this at 5. To me, it makes a very big difference. And the volume of this can sort of come down a little bit. And so if you have something like a snare or a hi-hat or really anything that you want to just have that extra pop, but then get out of the way, it's almost like having a compressor on it because it allows you to get this really, you know, quick transient. I mean, you could certainly go even louder. This envelope gives a lot of flexibility, and it's nice that we've got this visualizer here. just allowing a lot of control. And you can even go back up or something like this is something. Like you could even have it duck and then like immediately duck and get out of the way and then come back. Like it's pretty crazy. So I like that a lot. And I find it to be really helpful for making the noise channel just pop that much more. Let's move on. Of course, output is left channel or right channel or off entirely. Not much to say there. Length. This is the hardware length counter, and you certainly can use it. It can be helpful if you still need extra control to the length, even after the envelope. But most of the time I find the envelope can be pretty effective at sort of cutting things off, like abruptly where you need them to. So I don't necessarily find a ton of use for length, although it is good for maybe you have a patch that you're trying to kind of bring from an older version into the new version and you just want to sort of keep everything the same. It's good for backwards compatibility to have it there. So this just sets a length. It's not in ticks or anything. It's just a hardware length. It can be still very good for getting short sounds, although I think maybe the envelope is more useful. Pitch. We've got two pitch modes, free and safe. And this might harken your memory back to the old, what is it, free and stable or something like that. And a fun fact about the older versions of the stable setting, it didn't actually do what it was intended to do. More research was done in order to determine kind of how the noise channel functions. And in general, it kind of depends on the model of Game Boy that you're using. So sometimes, especially on like hardware Game Boy, like the original brick DMG, the noise channel will cut out randomly. And basically what happens is the noise channel noise is kind of made by this random generator called a linear feedback shift register. And sometimes the randomization is actually, there's a bug in it essentially that causes it to create zeros. And that results in silence. Like it's like a random, sometimes it randomly produces zeros. So what that means is essentially, instead of having what should be sort of a smooth pitch shift downwards, let's take this off just so that we can hear this. What might happen sometimes is it sounds like this, or even like this, and it will just cut without a K command. Like on hardware, it just won't work. And so the only way to get around this is to actually restart the noise channel, like reinitialize the channel on every pitch change. So that's what safe mode does. Avoid random mute on DMG and old CGB, Game Boy Color. And even there are some models of Game Boy Advance, I think, that have this. I know like the GB player for GameCube definitely has it. And so at the expense of the smoothness in the noise channel, you can now basically have reassurance that your snare or whatever noise instrument crash, whatever it may be, will never cut out. So as I mentioned, it is at the expense of smoothness. It creates a harsher sound. It's just a totally different texture. You can kind of retain some of it by slowing down the pitch, the rate of the change. And in the mix, you may not necessarily hear that kind of extra tonal thing, but, you know, the faster you go, kind of, the more present it is. So, very useful for hardware compatibility. And some of these emulators, like for instance, I'm using SameBoy. SameBoy emulates this random cutout. So, and I think even BGB does too. So you may actually want to use this even in some emulators, depending on the version. Older versions of SameBoy and BGB don't emulate that. The noise channel will basically never cut out. It's as if it were designed perfectly. So this may or may not be useful. I tend to use it a lot. We'll come back to this a little bit. Vibrato shape. This is just the shape of the vibrato for the V command. So you can have fun playing with this a little bit. Maybe, square vibrato can be an interesting touch sometimes. Right, so. Something like that. Transpose on and off. We've got a transpose switch. So if you've got a noise kick and you're transposing things around, you may want to turn the transpose off. Command rate. This will change the if pitch equals tick. It will always change the P and V command rate in the noise channel. So this is another way to kind of slow down your pitch slides by changing this command rate. So it's like it's slowing it down in case PFF is too fast or you want these pitch changes to happen at a slightly slower rate. I think that sounds so cool. Let's switch this back on safe for a second. See, that sounds a little bit smoother. So there is a way to retain some of that smoothness, I think, by setting the command rate lower. All in all, it's just something extra to be able to play around with. And then, of course, we've got tables. And I think one useful thing to talk about is maybe this volume column, or even using E commands. A lot of my older snare designs have this kind of thing where I'll set the envelope just basically to this and then use the E command to control the rest of the volume shape here. So that's kind of a way that I'm getting, that transient to happen, because this is essentially like having this as E90. And this is still an effective way to work, but and it can be good if you're changing tempos around because these are dependent on ticks. But all in all, I find that using this envelope is just a much faster and easier way of doing this. And then I can avoid having to really set any E commands here. And instead I can just work on setting transpose commands. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's say I do want this to be a snare, I might sort of pick a pitch around here. So I think this is a really long decay. I'm gonna shorten this a little bit. I mean, that could be a good snare even on its own. It doesn't really need anything else. But one thing that can help is having a couple of transposes that kind of go, upwards. And then I'm gonna stop this at some point. You could use a K command to stop the note and the table. I'm using A20, which is stop table. So, you can use whichever you feel is appropriate. Likewise, you can play with these transpose commands. I like putting it on safe here because I think that it just provides a little bit more crunchiness to the transient. But it's really up to you. Let's hear the difference. Not a whole lot. That sounds kind of great to me. Now, see, to me, this doesn't sound much different. I would rather have it on safe because I know that this is never going to cut out. I do think that transient is a little bit too low, so I'm going to bring these up a little. That sounds pretty good. So that might be an example of a sort of a basic snare. And then, of course, one really fun thing you can do is just change it to the pitch noise. Oh. And, you might even consider throwing a P command on here like this, right? So Now I think it maybe necessitates starting them up a little higher. And this maybe I need to fade out a little quicker. So something like that, perhaps. Doesn't have to be this dramatic by any means, and you could certainly stop the P command at some point if you don't want it to continue any further. Or change the rate. Might be good to stop the P here because as you can see, it doesn't actually stop it until you stop. If you look over at the noise note on the right-hand side, it just kind of continues. Okay, so let's call this a snare and move on. So let's talk about hi-hats. It's a little more boring, but you know, it is kind of necessary. So let's do the same thing again where we're gonna set like a transient here. Okay. One cool thing, obviously, you can kind of change the volume even just by going up in the range. As you get higher, the volume gets a little quieter. So this can be a way to add dynamics without even doing any kind of E commands or anything like that. Like, it's just sort of naturally embedded in the... But let's talk about another way to add dynamics. Okay, certainly everybody's favorite, the E command. You know, this can be really good, especially if you want to extend the note a little. So, you know, this is kind of more like an open hi-hat. Just setting it with a little bit longer decay. And I should say, actually, here's where the length would actually be useful, because let's say you're using an E command, this length counter will override the E command. So it kind of like puts a cap on how long this envelope can actually be. You could do like an upward envelope. So actually, it can be kind of good for that. But let's talk about another way to add dynamics too, because I like doing this a lot. And it's using the R command, retrig. So actually, I should have talked about this when I was talking about the other commands, but that's okay. We'll revisit this now because it's a good time. And essentially, this isn't really something I ever used before. I sort of didn't understand it, but now that we've got this envelope, let's say I want to retain this transient. That's something we can't do with an E command because it's emulating the hardware volume, which are very smooth slopes. Like, they all sort of look like this, right? Like, they all kind of look like this, or they look like, you know, this. Like, you either go up, well, actually, it goes all the way up, or like this. So these are what all of the E commands basically look like. Oh, I forgot what I had this set to. That's okay. It doesn't really matter because I'm just going to put it back to something. So that's kind of okay. I'm going to change it. Okay, anyways. So R00, this doesn't really do anything. But what we can do is if you want something quieter, you can retrig this at one lower volume. So this first digit will say, reduce this by one level, and it will keep these numbers and just essentially lower them like this. So this is a way to add dynamics. It just keeps getting quieter and quieter. and shorter. And you can also do this with your snares, right? So if you want like a ghost snare, something like that. Likewise, say you want a couple of these to be a little bit louder. Actually, let's like put in a little kind of snare fill. And then bump this up, you know. So anyways, I think you get the idea. I'm not saying this actually sounds that good, because I don't think it does. But this R command, and another thing that I really like to do a lot is more than just the single retrig, is to do like a triplet kind of, I guess this would be triplets. So this will decrease the volume on every 4 tick retrig. Oh, should probably cut that off. Or and you can do stuff like don't retrig the instrument, but change the shape here, right? So I think we're doing pretty good, but we do need a kick, right? So all right, let's talk about how to design a noise kick. I don't, you know, these are just sort of general guidelines that I think of. There's certainly plenty of room to be like super creative with this. Put some of these as like, you know, noise shape. What am I talking about? The short loop, this kind of thing. This is a just easy way to add some interest in here, because you know, it kind of can be like a ride cymbal or something like that. Yeah, so okay, this sounding pretty okay. But like I said, we need a kick. So let's go in here. I probably should have called that other instrument hi-hat. That's okay. Kick. All right, and then noise kicks, I like them to be loud. So we'll maybe start kind of like this. We could also do something like this, where we're kind of like sustaining this and then cutting it off sort of immediately. You could also use length here. And then let's set a table. Now, everybody's gonna have their own sort of taste on what sounds good in a noise kick. And for me, I mean, I think the easiest way is to kind of start with a P command and sort of see where you end up. So, you know, we're gonna probably wanna start this at a low note. And I tend to think that these sound better using the pitched noise. Okay, now that's not even that bad. I mean, is it good? Not really, but it's kind of okay. We're already kind of at a good place. Sometimes I like to give an actual like sort of upward transient here. And so I'm gonna transpose and we could start this on this tick actually. So that way it kind of gives a little bit of attack. But really, and I mean, this isn't bad. And you could certainly adjust the slope of the P command. Kind of thing. It's definitely there, I think. But let's see if we can get it to sound even better if we switch the pitch to safe. This is going to make it more tonal and like almost like a pulse kick. And it's probably going to sound better pitched up a little. Like you can hear that that's like actually pretty tonal. I mean, like, I think that sounds pretty good. I mean, and that's with what? It's just a little transpose, which, let's see if we take that out and just use the P command if it sounds all right. We could, you know, we could sort of get that transient just by tuning the note up a little bit. I mean, is it the most brilliant thing ever? Not necessarily. Could even maybe stop this, you know. So, and then let's try what happens if we do the long loop noise. Like it kind of even makes a serviceable kick with this noise. And then, I mean, listen to what happens when we get up here, you know, like what a cool sound. Like that, it kind of retains all of that low crunchiness because we're on the safe mode. Whereas when you go back to free, like it loses all of that. So you can hear how this adds just a little bit of that transient on top, the click of the kick that you would expect, right? So actually, like, I find it kind of gets a really good kick sound. And there are times when I really need a kick to go in either the pulse channel or the noise channel. And of course, if you're the kind of person who just likes to write all the percussion in the noise channel, I feel like that's pretty serviceable. And of course, like you could change this. Go a little. Kind of play with the pitch command and the envelope to try to get something that fits where you need it to. If it needs to be shorter, you know, make it a faster pitch and a shorter envelope. If it needs to kind of hang in there and really get that bass, then you kind of can. Do noise kicks sound a little farty? Yeah, but they work well, and I think that this safe pitch kind of helps. So those are the things that I mostly wanted to talk about. There's even crazier stuff that you can do if you get into this like R80 command, which is the fast retrig. I'm just going to put this on everything and see if I can get any interesting stuff to come out. Oh, yeah. So what this does is retrigs like, it's like at frame rate or I forget what it said, screen refresh rate maybe, or 1 through 7 is increase volume, 9 through F is decrease, second digit is the speed, R8X equals resync. And then yes, R8F would turn that off. So this is actually something that I have done to make a clap sound. So let's make a clap for fun. Is to set this like R80 2 or something like that, and then immediately sort of let it last a couple of ticks and then sort of turn it off. And if you do this right, you can get a pretty convincing clap. I honestly don't know how good. I mean, it's actually not too bad as it is. Sometimes it needs a shape command to kind of just get it to a new pitch. Let's see. May need a longer envelope. Maybe this is too... See, at different tempos, obviously the table is going to go slower or faster. Yeah, not bad. Maybe we can get a little... If we did the transient thing again. That's too long, I think. You could even shift it up once. And doubled with a kit clap. That's not too bad. I can't wait until and you could add something like a transpose here if you wanted to have a little slight transient. It's maybe too much. And maybe that's more the right pitch. The point is really just that there are many options available to you. And I hope that this has given you, you know, some insight into the noise channel, some good ideas, maybe some default template, you know, starting places for your instruments. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I really want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy playing with the noise channel. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I think I said that already. And yeah, hope you enjoy using the new noise channel in LSDj 9.2.L, the new stable version. Until next time, happy LSDJing.